What's going on, everybody? Dylan Manfrey on hand. I'm so excited to be joined by Mike Vorkunov, the beat writer for the New York Knicks of The Athletic. Mike, how are you holding up through all this?
Trying to stay sane. Really,
Sure.
that's the best thing you can do.
I know. What have you been up to lately since the NBA canceled its season?
Just trying to find stuff to write about, trying to find Nick stories to write about, not Nick stories, just basically anything interesting. And it's a challenge, but it's a fun one. You get to stretch your wings a little bit as a reporter right now.
Yeah, I mean, how I was gonna ask you that too. I was like, how hard really is it to find new things to write about when everything is canceled? I mean, I know there's the possibility of some practice facilities opening in states that have loosened restrictions, but New York
Mhm.
isn't one of them. So are you paying attention to like the national things going on as well as in addition to what's happening with the Knicks?
Yeah, I mean, really, it's trying to pay attention to everything that could impact them at the moment, right? Like, for a lot of these, especially the COVID related things, a lot of it stems from the state level down to the local level, from sometimes the national level, right? And with the NBA, obviously, this is all generated from the league wide level into what the teams can and cannot do. And so, yeah, it's just, it's trying to understand everything that's going on. There's a lot of different cross currents at the moment, where the NBA really, I think probably more than ever, is really just kind of a participant, rather than someone guiding what's going on.
Sure. Yeah. That makes perfect sense. So what was your initial reaction like when all of this happened? When you found out Rudy Gobert had tested positive and then the season's being shut down. I can't imagine you had a quiet reaction to that.
The Knicks were playing in Atlanta that night. I didn't make the trip to Atlanta. I'd been in DC the night before when they were playing at the Wizards. Honestly, I was wondering what took so long to some degree. I thought
Sure.
that fans shouldn't have been in the arena at that point,
Mhm.
having kind of paid attention to what was going on around the world and just the way that the spread of the virus had been going around. And I thought, as much credit as the NBA should get for being the first one to really pull the trigger and obviously suspend their play, that led to this domino effect right across
Yeah.
professional sports everywhere, uh, worldwide, not just nationwide. So,
Mhm.
it's obviously difficult to to be the one that says, okay, we're going to stop our season, right? They were, that was an act of, I guess, what would I call it? Professional courage,
Bravery.
uh, business courage, in a sense.
Mhm.
But I also thought that everything that we knew at that point, and it seems like the NBA was following along too. I thought that, maybe they should have not had arenas full of fans before then
Mhm.
as well. Maybe they should have done more things to kind of try to mitigate the spread of the coronavirus within the little communities and hubs that they had control over. And so, as someone who was like at the Wizards game on a Tuesday night and Knicks Wizards, I was washing my hands very often. I was
Sure.
very conscious of what was going on, and the concerns that were there. And so I did, I think probably over the last week, and especially like the last few Knicks games that I covered, wonder why. I was wondering in the back of my head, why are we here? Is this a worthwhile reason for all of it? And I don't know if I was the only one, but I think it was interesting trying to balance the professional aspects of being there and also understanding the health concerns, that everyone in the arena, knowingly or unknowingly, was kind of going through that day, that night.
Yeah. I mean, were any players raising concerns as well at all too?
No, I didn't hurt any players. I think they were all kind of, we asked them about it, obviously, and they were all kind of content and confident in the measures that the NBA was taking, the Knicks were taking. At that point, if you remember, early March, they were telling them not to shake hands or fist bump,
Yeah.
to, giving out hand sanitizer. I don't remember all the measures they were taking, but everyone seemed to be calmed by what was going on at that point. And I think maybe that's why when they, suspended the season the night of March 11th, once we knew that a player tested positive, it seemed like such a shock because the NBA had tried to take these kind of like muted measures instead of going all in on it, and then they had to eventually just go all in on it because someone had caught it, which kind of seemed like it was just a matter of time, really.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. Especially because it spread like so fast, everything, it definitely raises concerns about, everybody's safety in the arena. So when you're reporting all of this, how did you go about it? Like, what were some things that were running through your mind about how you could report this? Because obviously this is a new, topic to everybody. Um, not I'm sure not many people really knew how to approach it. So how did you really go into that? What was your mindset?
I was just trying to get educated on it.
Mhm.
Obviously, I'm not a health expert.
Yeah,
I'm just a reporter, but so it's just trying to read as much as I can, see what, like what the CDC was saying, see what other health organizations, what other news outlets were saying, and trying to be as educated as I could be when asking questions, when writing about it. I think that's really all you can do at that point is try to be as smart as you can in writing about a topic that's kind of, um, you know, normally out of your purview, I guess.
yeah,
Although sport does have a way of reaching its tentacles into every part of our society.
sure.
Trying to figure out how a global pandemic was working was not something I was normally used to. And so I was just honestly trying to get as smart as I could be, and then having that guide what I was writing and asking.
Yeah. So talk about how you got involved with the Athletic. I know you had gone to Rutgers. You were the editor of the Daily Targum, their student paper. You made some previous stops at the Star Ledger, and you were freelancing for a little bit. So how did you really get involved with the Athletic?
I do want to say I was not the editor of the Daily Targum. I'm not going to take
Okay.
credit for that. I was the assistant editor. I had no aspirations, nor was I probably qualified to be the sports editor of the Targum. I couldn't get anything coming out of college. I've got rejected for like every internship.
Hmm.
I couldn't get a job, and I graduated in 2009, which was a nice time. The last, recession that we faced,
Yeah.
although, that may seem like something small compared to what we're going through now.
Hmm.
And so jobs were scarce, and especially journalism jobs. And so I couldn't get anything, couldn't get any internships. And I, found ways to write on the side as I worked, full-time job during the day and during the nights when I had free. And then I was lucky enough to get an internship with the Star Ledger, and I think it was the summer of 2011, and they kept me on after the summer. And that started like 4.5 years there that I loved, and I was very happy to have. And I covered everything from college sports to the Jets, to eventually the last 2 years there, I was covering the Mets, and that was awesome. And in 2015, I kind of resigned abruptly, and I started freelancing, and I did that for, I think it was like almost 3 years, 2.5 years, something like that, before the Athletic offered me the job of covering the Knicks for them. And that was February 2018 when we launched the New York City site, and it's been a great job ever since.
So did they like just reach out to you, or you reach out to them? How did it really work? Because a lot of people are saying that, like, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it's very hard to get into the journalism industry. And obviously I know it is. But a lot of people, I think, I guess, poo-poo the industry and think that it's a dying art. But other people will say that, there are jobs available. You just have to really go out and find them and network and, do X, Y, and Z.
No, it is. I mean, listen, I think the state of the media industry is obvious, right? There's not a lot of jobs available. There's fewer jobs every day, it seems like, as we see media furloughs and media layoffs and all
Yeah,
that.
and especially now.
Yeah, even now, 2020 is much different than it was in 2018, much different than it was in 2011. I had people in 2009, saying, don't get into media, go to law school, go do that. Because even at that point, it was kind of clear what the trend was. And it's possible to get good jobs. Obviously, there are lots of great jobs.
Mhm.
I'm very happy. I love the job I have at the Athletic, and we have, I don't even know how many people we have right now. But I think as a whole, sports media, there's fewer jobs than before, and we understand like the financial aspects for it. And so I wouldn't be one of those people who says, don't go into it, because I think it's a great job if you can get it, but you should be realistic about what the circumstances are and what you're getting into. And I was at the time when I jumped into this industry, maybe not, maybe not as cognizant as I should have been, but that can be a good thing. And I think that's like, if you're trying to make a decision of whether to chase a job in sports media, you should understand, you should always be realistic and have your eyes wide open about what you're jumping into. It's a great job. There are hard jobs to get though. And unfortunately, it does seem like it keeps contracting. And, obviously the Athletic, luckily, we seem to be doing pretty well, and people like what we're doing and they're responding to it.
Yeah.
And so, I've been thankful for that.
Yeah. So, when you were like applying for jobs, what's something that like, I guess you did to maybe differentiate yourself and, so you could really stand out as a reporter?
Honestly, the applying for jobs thing didn't go so well for me.
Okay.
So I can't give you any success stories there. The Star Ledger reached out to me because after I got denied for every job when I graduated, I just kind of kept working. I kept covering Rutgers basketball and Seton Hall basketball and Rutgers football for New Jersey Newsroom, which was back then, what are we talking about? Like 11 plus years ago, the Star Ledger had a number of layoffs and a bunch of people who took buyouts started their own site online.
Mm.
And I asked to cover sports for them. And then I kind of worked that into being their sports editor. And so, I use that to keep writing on the side and keep doing that. And I guess people, someone noticed my work and passed it on to the sports editor at the Star Ledger, Drew Van Esselston, who is a great boss. And, I bothered him about an internship and couldn't get one before. And then in 2011, it opened up. And so I got a call one day and, offering me an internship and if I was interested, and I was. And so really, that's the biggest lesson I guess, in part, it's just like, keep doing the work and try to get as good as you can be. And, pushing yourself out there, but also if you are good, people will notice, I think. And at least that's what happened in my career.
Yeah. What do you like most about writing? Because, when people get into sports media, there's so many different tracks that you can take. So what about writing really makes you tick and, allows you to enjoy it so much?
I hate writing. I love writing, but I hate writing. It's extremely difficult. It's never easy. And every time I sit down, I sit down and I'm like, oh, this is the worst. Can I not do this today? Can I do this tomorrow? And I'm sure my editors probably hate me for that because deadlines are always difficult to hit for that very reason. No, I think the one thing that I found interesting, the longer that I'm in this, and I think others, maybe they feel the same way, I don't know, is that I think you get into this job because you really like sports and you really love basketball, football, baseball, whatever. But I think the reason you stay in this job and the people who succeed at a high level stay in the job is because you like reporting and you like writing. And that becomes more of a driving force than anything, even more than the sports aspect does. And so you start working on your craft a lot more. So that's been the case for me. I like writing because it is extremely hard. It's hard to put words together that make sense, that put sentences together that make sense. Every time I try, trying to write something different, trying to write the same story in different ways, if you have to, over a period of months, over the course of the season, it's all hard. It's all a challenge. It's, on the grand scale of things, it's not as hard as, let's say being a nurse or a doctor is at that point in time, at this point in time, or at any point in time. But on the personal scale, when you're trying to do this job, it's, writing's it's hard. And I'm not very good at it. And I'm always in awe of the people who are really good at it.
Did you have any like mentors or inspirations, like, growing up or even now that, you really love their reporting, and really wanted to model them?
Yeah. I didn't really become like a self-conscious, journalist until I'd say until after I graduated college. It was not something that I always aspired. I've heard stories, people who are like, oh yeah, I went to college to be a sports writer and all that wasn't me. So I didn't grow up reading SI and wanting to be an SI. I was kind of a late bloomer in that regard, but the people that I looked up to once I figured out this was something that I want to do, and especially once I got to the Star Ledger, where Steve Politti, Mark Carrig, Andy McCullough, Jenny Vrentas, Connor Orr, all those people that I worked with, Mike Garofalo, those are the initial people that I looked at. I'm like, oh wow, these guys and are really, really good. Every time I read Steve Politi now, I'm like, wow, that guy is doing something I
Yeah,
had never even thought of or
and
couldn't,
different.
couldn't execute. And I do that now reading The Athletic, with a bunch of people. There's too many people for me to even name because I know I'll forget someone. But yeah,
Mhm.
people like that are, every day I read them, I'm like, oh, wow, these guys are really good at what they do. And they have just this entire skill set that I wish I could emulate.
You ever feel like you're, maybe trying to prove yourself a little bit? Maybe when you first started out, or was there like a validating moment, throughout your career that's like, I'm here, like I'm actually a part of this industry and I'm doing good work.
Uh, I'm trying to prove myself every day. I don't think I've had enough success to be able to just rest on my laurels. I
Hmm.
don't think. I think there's a lot of people who have gotten to the top of their profession in journalism and sports journalism, especially, and I'm not one of them. That's for certain.
Hmm.
But like every time you get a new job, it's great. When I got named the Mets beat writer, that was really cool because I finally had like a professional beat.
Yeah.
When I got to write for the New York Times for the first time, that was wonderful. Writing for the Times was great. Like when I got named the Knicks beat writer at the Athletic, that was awesome because I'd always wanted to cover an NBA team, and so those are kind of validating and something I celebrate in every step. And I think it's important to always take stock of your career and just see if what you like, if what you're still doing. But I'm I'm trying to get better and be happy with what I'm doing every day. I don't know. Most of my friends who are reporters are rarely ever happy with what they're doing in the sense of like content with their production. I think we're all kind of miserable in that way. We always feel like we suck.
Everybody's their own biggest critic. I know that feeling. Is that
Yeah.
you kind of identify with that a little bit? You are your own biggest critic.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think I'm horrible. And I hate reading my stories after the fact. And I always find, if I do, this is wrong or that wrong, or I should have done something, written it differently or had a different lead or whatever. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
feel the same.
I definitely don't. Yeah.
I feel the
Yeah.
same about my own
I
work.
do not enjoy going back.
It's definitely a weird feeling. So you said you always wanted to cover an NBA beat. Were you a Knicks fan growing up? Talk about like your upbringing, of how involved
In the '90s. I was a Bulls fan, and then I kind
for a
of
lot of your
transitioned.
work.
Yeah, and then I kind of transitioned to being a Knicks fan, but I wasn't like a rabid one, and I was more so just always an NBA fan because I love basketball. It was the first
Mhm.
sport that I really got into that I used to play. So I was just a big NBA fan. Jordan era NBA, the Kobe era NBA. Like Dirk, Steve Nash, Penny Hardaway,
Mhm.
all those guys. And so I love basketball more than anything else, more than any singular team. And then once I started being a professional reporter in 2011, I kind of just like dispensed with all my fandoms
Mhm.
as hard as that was to do. And now I just like the sport. I just like watching basketball on a nightly basis. I like watching good players and good teams and really studying into it and looking into it and how the league is changing and all that type of stuff. But yeah, I started out as like a Bulls fan, just like everyone else in the '90s, because Jordan was a demigod at that point,
Yeah.
as the Last Dance is really trying to impart on us, and it flourished from there.
Have you been watching The Last Dance at all?
Yeah, I have.
What do you like about it? I'm sure it's
Uh,
so interesting for somebody like you.
yeah, it's really fun. It's a good way to spend 2 hours every Sunday. I have my criticisms of it, but like on the whole, it's still like it's a good time. It's fun to just it's like the return of monoculture where everyone else is doing the same thing as you and reliving the '90s to some degree or reliving the Jordan dynasty, and it's just interesting to watch. It's like a flashback to a better time in a lot of ways.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. I mean, I wasn't around that time. I was born in '99, but like, just you hear all these stories and it's just like, oh my God, like this is actually like this is crazy, because you didn't think that like I never knew that Dennis Rodman, went to Vegas abruptly or anything like that. But, it's definitely cool to watch from a fan standpoint too. So I heard um I heard that, when you were at college, and I heard this through my interview with Kyle Franco, um,
Mm.
that you got to interview David Stern. He told me that, you just emailed him and he said, yeah, sure, come to New York. So can you talk about that experience a little bit? What motivated you to do that?
Yeah, I mean, well, Franco is obviously a great reporter in his own right, and working with
Yeah.
him was a lot of fun. Honestly, my whole ethos has been, especially when I was in college and just starting out, was just like kind of just to shoot your shot. I knew David Stern was a Rutgers grad, and I thought, hey, I write for the Daily Targum, which is the Rutgers school paper, and why not try it? And I don't remember if I emailed him or like the NBA PR person. I think it was the NBA PR person, maybe.
Yeah.
And I was just like, hey, I write for the Targum. He's a grad. Would he be interested in it? I think it took like a few weeks, and they responded, and they were like, yeah, let's do it. And I didn't know if I was going to get a yes or no or whatever, but I figured, what's the downside? And it just hit, and that was cool. And I got to go to his office. I think it's still the current NBA office.
Mm.
And it was, especially for a college student, it was really interesting just to like get into the office of the NBA commissioner and sit down and do like a proper interview. And, you go from like talking to Rutgers basketball players to the NBA commissioner. That's a big leap. And so that was pretty awesome.
What's he like? What was that interview like for you?
I remember him as kind of being a little bit intimidating. Even then, even to a college student, he tried to dictate terms. It was always on his terms. Yeah, we were talking about the women's basketball team at some point, and I think he like didn't remember someone's name, and he like asked to go off the record for a moment, and then he went back on the record. So he's always kind of controlling the tempo and pace of the interview. Which is exactly what you hear about him now, right? Like he's always the guy who wants to be in control. That's just who he is. And that's kind of what I remember from that interview, was just him being the guy in charge in his office. And it just seemed like he was the same person he was with me as he would have been with, David Aldridge or any big time NBA reporter at the time.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure is that interview like, among one of your favorites that you've done over the course of your career?
Yeah, I think so. Just because it was really cool to do that then. I'm trying to remember now, like big interviews that I've done, but I mean, getting the interview commissioner to get a one-on-one when you're in college is pretty great.
Yeah, no, if somebody of his stature at, in one of the biggest leagues on the planet for that matter. Kyle also told me that, they called you right-click synonym. When you were in college.
I didn't know about.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
No, he said, Kyle told me that, he thought you might have known about it because, you use all these like.
Kyle was talking smack behind my back, I guess.
He said that because you used a lot of these big words in your stories. So is that something that like, you try to do in your stories? Maybe use some big words that you might have to like, find some synonyms for?
No, but I do try to like not use the same words all the time. I just think that when you're writing, you should try to make it. You just try to make it interesting.
Yeah.
And like it's good to play with language, and to try to take chances. And you should be like you shouldn't have to dumb down your writing just because you're writing about sports or anything like that. But you shouldn't try to like make it specifically smart or look for big words just to throw them in just because. I always, use whatever that came to mind. And it's just because, a lot of the reading that I do, especially at that time, at this point, I don't get to read anymore that much, being on the road. And then also trying to be a competent parent, you lose time to read. Mm-hmm. But at that point, like my college classes, I wasn't a journalism major. I didn't have, a lot of communications classes. I tried to just use the language that I would normally use, but except I was just writing about sports. And I think, the best way to write is to write in the voice that you're comfortable in. And so that's just what I was comfortable writing. And apparently that didn't sit well with everyone else, according to Franco.
He just thought it was funny and just a funny memory, because you used a lot of these big words in your stories.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think I didn't even look at it as like big words, and I just think it's good to like use different language, use different words, expand your diction. I think readers get bored if they read the same thing every time, right?
Sure.
So you kind of have to, be cognizant of that and just like do it differently than someone else normally would, right? Like if they're used to reading the same like 100 words presented in different order, then, use 150 words instead and give them something different.
Yeah, definitely. So what's some of the hardest things about, being a beat reporter? Because you're, probably going to practices, going to games, a lot, you're traveling, I'm sure. What's the hardest part about, your job?
Um, Time management is really difficult.
Mm,
Just because you are on the road and you have to obviously still do all the things you need to do at home, and you're at games and all that type of stuff. So I find time management to be really important. Um, you know, like, especially if you want to do this at like semi high level, you have to be able to juggle everything that you need to do and not really try to fall behind. Obviously you will often, but as
mm,
long as you're thinking about it and how to best use your time, when to call sources, when to write, when to just watch film or watch a game, when to take a break, when to read something else. It's important to do all that stuff too. So time management is very hard. And for me, like, it's important to read other people and what other people are writing. And I don't mean necessarily on the beat, but I just mean like good writing somewhere else, period. Because I think that's how you get better. Part of how you get better as a writer as well. Um, and so, like, it's hard. It's a hard job in the sense that you're always, trying to keep on top of whatever the story of the day is, or you're trying to make calls to agents and executives and whoever else. And that's always been the biggest struggle for me, was just managing my time and making sure I'm doing enough of everything I have to do.
yeah.
And the demands of the season change so differently. Some days, you're just trying to finish off a big feature. Other days, there's news breaking. You're just trying to stay on top of that. And it's you really have to make sure that you're nimble.
For somebody at your level, you're covering, you know, a big professional league. You're covering the Knicks, although they might not have the most success. Um, how are you able to, cultivate a list of sources that you can really trust and go to? Not really trust, well, just go to when you
No, you have
need
to
to write a
trust them.
story.
I mean, you have to trust them, and they have to trust you. I mean, they have to trust you because they trust you as a person who they're willing to help out and, help run down information. You have to trust them because you have to trust that they're giving you the truth, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the relationship works both ways in that regard. And one of the things that I've thought about was something that Mark Rigg told me when I was on the Mets beat, and he said, part of having good relationships with sources is just having them like you. People help out the people they like, right? So, you know, um, sometimes it's as simple as that. Like, most of the time, if you're talking to sources and just people, is just you're talking about other sports, you're talking about your college, you're talking about, I don't know, family or whatever. Like, you're not necessarily talking about basketball all the time, and so you get to know them as people, more so than just NBA executive X or NBA agent X or whatever. And then along the line, somewhere there, you ask for help on a story or something like that, and they're able to help you out. But I've always remembered that it's just like, part of it is just being a likable person, that they are happy to help out because they don't need to, and because they don't have to spend the time talking to you, but they like you, and they are.
Was it hard to just, I guess, build that source list up when, you're first getting into this? And what did you really do to, I guess, build that source list up?
It's still hard. One, it's there's more. It's weird, as although the, like, I guess, I don't know how to describe the legacy media or is contracting, or the I don't know, mainstream media is contracting, although I don't even know what mainstream is anymore. There's more people than ever, like, trying to break news in basketball and football and baseball, like all those sports. There's more people than ever reaching out, I feel like, to executives and agents and all that. And so there's more people than ever that you're competing with to get news and get stories. And that agents and execs and all those people involved in the news chain are talking to. And so it's hard. You've got a lot of competition
Definitely.
to get responses from them. That's, let alone the people that you're actually on the beat with. And so that's, I don't know if I definitely have not mastered it, but it's definitely something that's difficult and that I think about every day is, who should I reach out to today? who, when did I talk to this person last? Like, what can I talk to them about? It's a very competitive industry,
Of
both
course.
on a micro scale, just on the beat that you cover, and also on the macro scale when you think about everyone else who might be reaching out to that person that day.
Yeah. No, absolutely. What's, I guess, what's like the most enjoyable part about being a beat writer for you?
Enjoyable. I like watching basketball. It's fun to just like go to a game and
Of
watch a
course.
game. It's fun to talk about the Knicks with people who are involved with in the league. I like reporting a lot. Occasionally, I like writing, but honestly, it's just that. It's like, sometimes it's really fun just to watch a good basketball game, and sometimes it's fun to just be on the uh, cusp of reporting a story and just talking to a bunch of different people and searching out different leads on a story. Like that to me is fun. I like reporting. I like that whole aspect of it. So those to me are probably the two most fun things.
What is your what's like your notebook look like, on a, I guess, week of a game? Like how are you able to, I guess, keep up on everything because there's so much going on at every second, I'm sure.
Man, I am a mess. I'm not a great I'm not great at organizing things. I have like 50 Google Docs pulled up at any given point in time, and then I use my actual physical notebook, to take notes during the reporting or when I'm
Mm.
talking to people in the locker room or on the sidelines of games. So it's just a bunch of different jotted notes, and then I find like almost order in clutter, and so that's kind of how I operate.
Yeah, no, I definitely, envision that with my own notebook sort of because you have all this information, you don't know what to do with it, but you're just getting it down for the heck of it.
Yeah.
Um, what what is like, I guess, describe to me a typical day in, your life going to cover a game. What's like the day to day for you?
I mean, if there's a game that day, I'll probably get like a start around 11 or so, and just either, if depends, if I'm working on like a feature story, I'll either try to write a little bit or try to do some more reporting. If I'm not, I'll try to text a few people, see if there's someone I can call or start brainstorming for a different story.
Mm.
Trying to do research on it online or, Nexus or whatever. And then, I try to get to games 3 hours before. So 7:30 tip at MSG means I'm trying to get there 4:30, 4:45. And then
Mm.
I go straight to the court and see if I can find anyone there to talk to. And then I'm there until, they kick us out at like 7 o'clock. You make a beeline for the locker room when that opens occasionally. Sometimes you go to the coach's press conference if there's anything specific that you need to ask. But from like 4:45 to like 7 o'clock, I'm just trying to see if there's anyone there I can talk to, and either to ask about something that might happen that night or something that's newsy, or just to catch up with people who come to the game and I already know. And so, for like about 2.5 hours there, you're just trying to be as social as you can, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it's game time. Tip off. What's your mindset? Are you writing during the game? Like at what? A lot of
It
times.
depends. I'm usually not writing that night's story during the game. We don't have to write off of games all the time, luckily, and
Okay.
so I'm either watching the game, taking notes, maybe for something down the line, see if there's anything I can notice. Sometimes I'll be transcribing. Sometimes I'll be working on a story if I do have something due the next day or nearby. And so it just differs on what I'm doing. And so that's what I'm doing during the game. I try to watch as much as possible. Occasionally if it's like late in the season, the Knicks are out of it, then the games might take, second priority to something else that I'm working on.
Mm.
And after the game, you do the press conference, you do the locker rooms, and usually I'm not writing that night, and so then I'll head home and maybe I'll transcribe first just to make sure I get that out of the way because that's the most tedious part of the
Yeah.
job. And yeah, for me, usually that's how that goes.
Have you ever like dealt with writer's block? Because I mean, it's a long season.
Oh, all the time. Yeah, for sure. I mean, every time I write, I spend most of my writing time, and I'm not exaggerating, just trying to think of what my lead is and where to go from there. I'm one of those
Yeah.
writers who needs to get their lead in place, and then it kind of maybe flows a little more intuitively from there. But if I don't have my lead in place, I can spend hours or push off a story for like a day until it gets there, until I can think of something.
is there a favorite type of story that, you know, you like to write? Because some people are, you know, better at writing features, others are game stories. So is there a particular story that, like, you know, you like to write?
I mean, I love writing features. Like that's the best part of the job to me.
Mm,
But writing a game story, it's not a, you know, it's not as if you're just writing about the game specifically. At least the way I
yeah.
look at it, you're always kind of looking for overarching themes, the big picture, and so that's usually, you know, it's not like a feature per se, but it is. You're writing the same way you would write a feature. You're trying to make it as powerful as possible. You're trying to make it as interesting as possible, and you're, you know, at least for me, I'm probably not writing about like play by play or much of
Hmm.
what went on in the game, save for a few moments, because you're kind of looking at everything that went into that night rather than the, you know, 48 minutes of game time.
Yeah, definitely. You know, because you always have to, like, you know, come up with different ideas, make a, you know, story about it, not just like grocery list everything.
Yeah, and
Uh,
then it's important not to just put play by play in there or something like that,
yeah.
or make it full play by play rather.
No, I definitely understand that. It took me a little bit too, you know, just really just, you know, get over that hump, I guess. You know, especially like when you're first starting out. Um, so what's something that not many people really know about you? You know, people can look at like your bio on Twitter or whatever, but they don't really know you as a person, and that's really what I want to, you know, put out, and that's the reason why I started like the sport profile to, you know, get to know some of these people who are covering our favorite teams. So what's something not many people really know about you?
I don't really know. That's a hard question to answer because I don't know what people know about me. I'm not really. I'm not like one of those people who like shares everything about their life on Twitter.
Mhm.
That's not my Twitter persona. And not that I'm like exceedingly private, but that's just not the
Yeah.
way I use the app. I don't know. I don't know what they don't and don't know about me. I'm a Chelsea fan, I guess. I like EPL soccer. I don't know. I try to tweet about
Okay.
that a little bit. I'm a, you know, I try to find somewhere good to eat when I'm on the road all the time. I think it's important to enjoy your road trips and try new things. So I don't, does that count?
Yeah.
Does
I
that
mean,
fulfill this question?
sure, sure. What's the what's like the best memory of like, you know, someplace you've traveled to?
You know, for trips, it's always fun to get to like go to Miami, go to San Francisco. Chicago's a great city. I've been to Barcelona and Italy and Germany on just like on personal vacation. I just love seeing new places for that reason, just because I think it's important to see new things and get out of your bubble and just, you know, be as worldly as you can be.
Definitely. Um, anyway, I think that's all I have for right now, but I really appreciate your time with this. You know, I hope you had as much fun with it as I did. And,
Yeah.
you know, I'm really looking forward to, you know, writing your story.